All right, Mock Draft Wednesday on these parts, around these parts here on Jaguars Today. Matt Miller doesn't have a fresh one out there, Tony, but he does them fairly frequently. We love catching up with him when we get the opportunity from ESPN. And he joins us this morning, although his cohort, Field Yates, does have a fresh one out there today. Matt, good morning. Thanks for the time. How are you?
Doing well. Appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely, man. Hey, listen, I was looking at your insider story that you contributed to at late last week. And you had a little blurb on what you're hearing around the league on what the Giants will do with the third pick, which is obvious of great interest to us here in Jacksonville, because if they take Shedeur Sanders, it pushes down a player that we would like here. You wrote that a scout told you, quote, New York loving Shedeur is the worst kept secret in the league right now. How solid do you think that piece of intel is? Do you expect that if he's available to the Giants that they're going to pull the trigger on him?
Yeah, it's funny this time of year how you get information like that, right? And to see where it goes from that. That is exactly what I was told, that New York loving Shedeur, worst kept secret in the league, and that the Giants had a presence at every Colorado home game this year in some form or fashion. So if I had to make that pick today, what I think will happen, it would be Shedeur Sanders. Now, I want to hedge a little bit here and tell you that it wasn't that long ago when we were talking about the number 3 overall pick. A month out, I would have said, it's going to be Trey Lance. Of course it's going to be Trey Lance. The Niners love Mac Jones, and it ended up being Trey Lance, right? So in that draft, we all thought, hey, it's going to be Mac Jones, and it ended up being Trey Lance. So things can change somewhat fast down the stretch because you're getting FaceTime with players, you're bringing them in, you're figuring out who they are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. I think as of today, the Giants like Shedeur at 3, but I do want to say there's time for things to change. And I know, like, the games have already been played. We've already been through the combine. Shedeur size, there's pro day coming up. But there is a lot of time for things to change because of those private workouts and interviews.
Matt, how much should they like Shedeur Sanders? Like, what's your true evaluation of where he should go off the board? I understand the need for quarterbacks, but what's his real value in your eyes?
And I like him. I think he's being a little bit overrated. I have him as my number 20 overall player with a comp to Jared Goff. That's his ceiling. I think his ceiling is Jared Goff. He's incredibly accurate. He doesn't turn the ball over. But what's his elite trait? He doesn't have size. He doesn't have arm strength. He doesn't have escapability. He's really good at a lot of things. I don't know that he's great at any one thing. And that's my holdup with him. Like, I love watching him play. I've seen him play in person. I've been around him. He plays the game with a ton of fire. He's poised, he's confident, but I don't know what his elite trait is. And you might say it's accuracy, but that Colorado offense, go back and watch how many times he's thrown to a guy who's standing there. There's not a lot of throwing guys open because of the way they played, because of how long he took in the pocket. He's throwing to a lot of spots, not really throwing a lot of guys open. So, I mean, I like his game, but I have not seen him play and thought that's a number 1 overall pick or that's a top 3 pick. And I know this is a down draft class to some degree, so you got to adjust for that. But, again, he's my number 20 overall player. So I have a hard time with the talk that he's this, surefire top 5 pick.
Why would Jalen Walker make sense for the Jaguars at 5?
I mean, because he could do everything. That's one of my favorite players to draft. I love Jalen Walker. What can he not do, right? I mean, watch him against Texas. He's going to have 4 of those offensive linemen at Texas are going to get drafted, and the other one went back to school. He had 4 sacks against Texas and they couldn't stop him. He was all over the field. He just turned 21 years old. What he does coming off the edge, I think as a 3-4 outside linebacker, he could be very, very special. He's a little bit short-armed, but I thought the weight was good. He came in at 245 pounds. And a lot of folks are going to say, well, he only had 6.5 sacks. He only had 7 tackles for a loss. He didn't rush the quarterback as much as these other guys did. I mean, he was a situational pass rusher, and his pass rush win rate was one of the highest in the class. It's just a matter of, hey, he didn't get as many bites of the apple as some of the other guys did. So I'm a huge believer in his. I think, for Jacksonville, there's going to be that debate between, do you go with kind of the safe pick in Mason Graham, or do you go with the upside versatility of Jalen Walker? I think it's a hell of a debate. I like both of them. They're very, very different. But Jalen Walker is one of my absolute favorite players in the entire draft.
You mentioned outside linebacker in a 3-4. If the Jags are predominantly 4-3 and they had their 2 starting edge rushers, right? So he'd be like a situational pass rusher. Is there enough value? Does he play full-time on early downs as a linebacker in a 4-3?
I think you could. Yeah, I think you look at what Micah Parsons did, and I know that comp is probably, but he's getting tired of it. But what Micah did as a rookie, I think, is probably the method that you're looking at to say, okay, well, he could play some weak side or stack linebacker in a base 4-3. And the nice thing about Jalen is Georgia did drop him into coverage, so we've seen that. It's not like he's one of these guys you're completely projecting what that's going to look like. No, we saw it, and he played well in coverage. In fact, early in the year, he was playing more in coverage than he was. He's super aware. He's got the short area quickness. He's agile. I don't think you would have any real drop-off if you're playing him as more of a linebacker on first down.
It sounds like, and it's not unusual for the conversation about Mason Graham being the solid floor, right? Like there's a solid expectation of what he could be. And Jalen Walker, it's volatile, right? The results that you could get out of him are more volatile. Who in your mind is the biggest boom or bust prospect in this draft class?
Oh, wow. I mean, Travis Hunter is definitely up there. And I think some of that's going to come down to usage. If you try to do too much. And I go back to, we haven't seen a lot of guys try to do what Travis does at all. But what we have seen is guys come in on defense, like Isaiah Simmons, players like that, who they try to, kind of moonlight at a couple different spots on defense. And I know we just talked about Jalen Walker, Micah Parsons doing a little bit of this. But guys who don't have a home sometimes struggle in the NFL. And I think with Travis Hunter, that's going to be the obstacle for him. As much as I love him as a player, as much as I am wowed by his work ethic and his love of the game, trying to do too much, I think, will hold him back early. And I would caution against that. The team that drafts him, I do hope they say, let's get good at one thing before we try out another. If it's the Browns and they're going to use him at wide receiver first and foremost, let's get good at that. And then maybe play a little corner. If it's the Patriots and he's going to play corner first, let's make sure we got that locked down before we start running routes. And some of the beauty of Travis Hunter is what he can do on both sides of the ball, obviously. But I do think as a guy who's going to be drafted in the top 4, there is absolutely a boom or bust factor there with a smaller guy, 6'1", 188, who is probably a low 4.4 speed guy, right? Who's just electric, but he's got to find a home in the NFL.
Yeah, if he goes top 4, by the way, he's a bust. If he goes 5, he's going to be a superstar. Just trying to project that out there, wish casting. All right, let's presume Jags don't get Travis Hunter. The value isn't there at 36. Who are some wide receivers that you think would fit opposite Brian Thomas Jr. beginning at pick 70 that would be available somewhere in the 3rd round?
Yeah, it's a good receiver class in that area. I know we've kind of talked down on this receiver class. I like it in this range. Kyle Williams from Washington State was the best receiver at the Senior Bowl in terms of route running, quickness at the line of scrimmage. I mean, his footwork is fantastic. He gets open. Brian Thomas, such a big receiver, such a great deep threat. Having a Kyle Williams just tearing folks up on underneath routes would be so much fun to watch. I would put Jalen Royals from Utah State in that range as well. He is built, thicker body, on lower body. I'm not saying he's Deebo Samuel, but he's kind of built that way. If you think about he's almost built like a running back. It allows him to stay strict on his route. He's not going to get bumped off by coverage. He can play in the slot. He can be moved around in motion. Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech would be someone that fits that mold. It's actually a really good draft for that type of player, right? You've got your guy. You got your number 1. You got your X. If you want to find your Z and you want to find your Y, this is a good year for that because there are a lot of those guys that are just super quick. They're going to chew up yards underneath. They're going to be able to work through pressure, through contact, and be a good number 2 receiver in the NFL.
With Jack Besh and Jaden Higgins, are they likely to be off the board somewhere in between the Jags' 2nd and 3rd pick if they don't move around 36 and 70? Are they coming off somewhere in that mid to late 2nd round range, or is that too rich for your blood?
I think Jaden Higgins can come off late first. Let's see what happens with the run on receivers. And that's, let's say, the pick right after you guys, the Raiders. Let's say Tedero McMillan goes there. Mm-hmm. And then maybe Matthew Golden goes 12. We could see a run on receiver that gets Jaden Higgins into the late first round. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But that's kind of the marker to see, where does the first receiver come off the board? And then because I think we could see in the teams, Seattle, Cincinnati could grab another receiver. And then those playoff teams, they're gonna value receivers because they need cheap labor, right? So I could see Jaden Higgins going, if not late first, really early second. Jack Besh, probably middle to late 2nd round. He's a player teams just love. They love the makeup, what he does as a route runner, how physical he is underneath. He's one of those dudes that you're just going to have a lot of people banging the table for him as a pick when you get into the 2nd round. And it's hey, our board's getting a little wiped out. we know this guy's going to be a stud just day one. He's going to be awesome for us, and that's going to boost his value.
Who is your favorite edge prospect in this draft that's projected right now to go third round or beyond?
Ooh, that is a fun question. Probably Braden Swinson from LSU, and I think he's right in that third round range. But every time I watch him play, I end up moving him up the board a little bit. I like him more every time. He's got burst off the line. He plays with really good power. I think he could be, situational. He could stand up a little bit. He could play out wide. But again, just like I was saying with the receiver class, I actually really like this edge group, especially when we get into day three. Kyle Kennard from South Carolina. I know he didn't test super well, but God, just when you watch South Carolina play, that dude played like he was on fire. Josiah Stewart from Michigan. He's a lot like on offense with Jack Best, Josiah Stewart is, where I would jump on the table for him as a prospect. When you talk about character, leadership, the way he plays the game, an undersized dude who's just on fire against the run. So there's a lot of players like that are really easy to get excited about in the edge group on day three.
Man, very interesting group. I find, look, we're not Matt Miller, trust us, but we've been trying to push ourselves to do 7-round mock drafts every week to familiarize ourselves with some of these players a little bit deeper on. And with that in mind, cornerback, the Jags went out there. They've solidified their nickel position. They do have Jarian Jones as an option opposite Tyson Campbell. So maybe they don't go very early in the draft, but when you get, let's say, into the fourth round, and you're looking for a corner that projects to develop into a consistent starter in the NFL, is this a good position to be looking for that late in the draft? And who are some names to keep an eye out for?
I think it's a little bit thin at corner this year, honestly. That was something that even doing the 7-round mock draft, I feel like I was reaching to grab guys because it thinned out on me pretty quickly at the corner group. I would put Kobe Bryant from Kansas in there, and he is a talker. He had a great last 2 seasons for the Jayhawks. Both their corners, Kobe and Melo Bryant, really, really good players. Noel Williams from Cal is a ball hawk. He's physical. He can play a little bit inside or outside. Zy Alexander from LSU would give you some of that size that you're looking for. But I would say it's a light year when it comes to corners. And I think we'll see that reflected. We'll probably see guys going a little bit earlier than some of the projections. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if we see round 2 get a little bit full with corners just because teams are saying, gosh, we don't want to wait. Like we could get a running back, a receiver, an edge. We like our day 3 chances. At corner this year, that's a spot where if I'm headed into round 4 without one, you're really looking at backup type players.
Will Campbell basically shrugged off the whole conversation about his arm measurements at his pro day. What kind of reaction have you heard about whatever has been going on with the player measurements that were performed at the Combine?
Well, whoever did it at the Combine did it wrong. That's the gist of it, because it's not just Will Campbell. It's every offensive lineman who was measured at the Combine has measured differently at a pro day or at an event like the Shrine Game or Senior Bowl. The only player whose arms got shorter was Armand Mimbo, which is really interesting, right? He was longer at the Combine than he was at the Senior Bowl. Everyone else has been the opposite. So it is an issue. And in 15 years of doing this, guys, it's never been an issue before. This is really an outlier. The Combine is usually your standard. That's the one that you look at of, okay, this is the steady. We know these dudes know what they're doing. The Combine is, the fail-safe. This year has been different. So it's something where if you really care about arm length, you're going to bring Will Campbell in for a visit, and you're going to say, hey, while you're here, real quick, let's just pop a tape measure on this thing and see where we're at. Yeah, I think when you watch Will Campbell play, there are times where the arm length is an issue on tape. It is what it is. He makes up for it with his quickness. He makes up for it with his technique. He's a unique player. Teams are going to have to be okay with that. But, his production in the SEC the last 3 years should answer a lot of questions.
All right, last couple quick ones here from Matt Miller. Will Johnson, on your latest top 50 update, you had him ranked number 7. I feel like people are, I don't know if they're forgetting about him because he hasn't been able to work out. Is his stock in flux with decision makers? Should he be considered maybe the top pure corner after Travis Hunter in this draft? Where are you on Will Johnson out of Michigan?
Still love him. I don't know. I think this happens every year, guys, where people do, like you said, they almost forget. We over-evaluate. We really do. And I think groupthink is a big problem in the NFL and in the NFL draft industry as a whole. I'm trying real hard to stay out of that. And I think with Will Johnson, did he make some business decisions as a tackler this past year? Sure did. But, guys, I grew up watching Deion Sanders, and he made more business decisions as a tackler than anyone, and he's the greatest corner to ever do it. So I try to keep that context in mind, especially with guys who come into the year as top 10 prospects, and they're like, hey, the worst thing for me right now would be a bad injury. Play it a little bit safe. You get it. As long as we're able to flip that switch and turn it back on, I'm not worried about it. But, man, I love Will Johnson. I think he's a zone corner. That's what he's great at. He's really good at sitting back, reading the ball, making a break on it. I mean, he had 2 pick sixes in the limited time he played this year, right? Because of that. He can be a little over-aggressive, but I still like him. I think it's funny. It reminds me of Derek Stingley Jr., who that year was kind of the guy that was over-evaluated. It was like, he's got some injuries, and we don't know about it. And he goes number 3 overall, and now he's the highest-paid corner in the game. It's like sometimes how long the draft process is allows us to really over-evaluate these guys and overthink it. And I would say, Will Johnson is one of those guys this year, and there's several of them, but he's probably the headliner of that group.
At center, how many prospects do you think in this year's draft class could start day one for the team that drafts them?
So I like the center class. So I would say Gray Zabel, day one starter, without a doubt. Jared Wilson from Georgia, day one starter. Jonah Monheim from USC would be a day one starter. And I put Jake Majors from Texas in there as well. So 4 or 5. Drew Kendall from Boston College, potentially. It is a good center class. Not last year. Like, I loved last year's center class, but this is a good year. I think we've got a handful of starters. Then there's other guys who could potentially play center, who haven't in college. I know there's some talk about Dylan Fairchild maybe playing center. There's definitely talk about Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. He could play everywhere up front. So it's a fun group for sure, and there's some good value in that round 4 range.
All right, interesting. Matt, we could do this all day. We know you've got other things to do, so we're not going to try to pull that one off. But hopefully maybe we can get you on one more time before the NFL draft. But regardless, certainly appreciate your time this morning. NFL Draft Scout, at NFL Draft Scout is where you'll find Matt on the X or Twitter platform. And, of course, all over ESPN, ESPN.com, doing great work covering the upcoming NFL draft. We appreciate your time this morning, Matt. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I appreciate you.
All right, buddy. There you go.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.